Well, good evening, everybody. This is Empowering Democracy. I'm your host, Joe Firestone, and I'm here with Dee Piers, the host of Around the World with Dee and Friends, my very good friend who usually joins me for these shows. So, welcome,
Yes, your show is
Dee.
quite interesting. Thank you. Yes, it's our politics that we end up having 2 hours of political discussion or more every night, at least from Tuesday to Saturday and sometimes over the weekend.
Right, as well. Uh, okay, and Dee has her show uh, from Tuesday through Friday, and sometimes on Mondays also
Yes.
as well. So we both are very active, and we're joined by some of our friends from time to time, and also by Madeline Hoffman quite frequently. Uh, we do a lot of shows on international relations, but we do also shows on Dump the Corruption and on the messes made by neoliberalism here in the United States. Our topic for today is a Dump the Corruption topic. And what we're looking at, okay, today is the open secrets data that gives the breakdown by industries of what the industries spend or have spent in the past in the various election cycles. We're not going to be going through all the cycles, there's too much data, but we'll certainly do 2022, the cycle for 2022, and the cycle for 2020, and maybe go back as far as 2018. Okay, as well. We'll see how it works out. Uh, let's start anyway with the open secrets data on the interest groups.
Hmm.
So let me pull up the open secrets data for that. And before I do, though, I think I want to share this show on Facebook. So, okay, that takes care of that. Okay, so the interest groups. I'm sharing the interest group page from Open Secrets. Which candidates is the computer industry giving to? What are the patterns in tobacco contributions over the past 10 years? Does anybody really care about that anymore? Where is the political money coming from within the agribusiness industries? You can answer these kinds of questions effortlessly here with Open Secrets, oneofakind.org's one of a kind resource. So let's look at the answers to questions like those. For each interest group, we offer totals, a summary of political giving dating back to 1990 election cycle, including breakdowns by type of contribution and political party. Also, top contributors, a list of organizations, usually U.S. companies that have given the most from that industry through their employees and political action committees. and the top recipients, a list of candidates that have received the most from a particular industry. Here's data sector totals for 2021 and 2022. And number one, okay, is the fire sector. That's finance, insurance, okay, and real estate. In the last cycle, that sector gave or contributed $1.6 billion. You read it right, $1.6 billion. Of that, 626,817,753, which was 51.1% of the total contributions, was given to political parties and candidates. Conversely, there was 1 billion that was contributed, that was spent, that did not go to political parties and candidates. Well, where else could it have gone? The answer is, okay, it could have gone to outside spending on various issues, outside spending in favor of candidates that did not go to the parties and the candidates, but was in the independent expenditure category. And we'll cover that category, okay, a little bit later. But $1 billion, it's a fairly astonishing amount for one industry category. Okay, you can see by the bars over on the right, the blue bar is what went to the Democrats. The red bar is what went to the Republicans. So the Democrats.
It's not up.
Hmm?
It's not on the screen.
I haven't shared that?
No.
Oh, thanks.
I'm sitting here listening to you and then never thinking to mention to you that's not up.
Well, thank you for mentioning it to me now, so I can. Okay, I can show it.
Well, sometimes I just get so into listening that the graphics really don't pertain because I'm just engrossed in listening.
Yeah, I know, but it's I get engrossed in presenting the material, and I realize I haven't shared it either. So there it is.
Well, that's good.
So anyway, here we have a breakdown in these bars by party. So it turns out that in the fire sector, which at least I would expect to be more Republican, $320 million in the last cycle, really $320.5 million was given to the Democrats, and $304 million was given to the Republicans. So there was a slight advantage of $16 million that was given to the Democrats as opposed to the Republicans. The green bar there is the total amount that was not given directly to political parties and candidates, and that's the $1 billion that I spoke about earlier. 1,351,329 is the exact total from Open Secrets. And now, here is number 2, okay, is an other category. So what's in the other category? And clicking on the link there, it says This sector is home to a variety of industries that don't fall under any business, labor, or ideological groupings. Categories include educators, government employees, though not their unions, nonprofit organizations, religious groups, and members of the armed forces. While universities topped the list in sector spending for years, recent cycles made way for organizations like the Bernard Marcus Family Foundation, a foundation run by the GOP mega donor Bernie Marcus. It topped the list in 2016. Marcus Foundation doled out 13 million that cycle and continues to top the charts in the 2018 elections. And of course, we'll come to the point, we'll see what it gave for the 2022 election also. But anyway, that's the definition of what's in the other category, so you have an idea. Now, how much money was in the other category? Well, a total of $1.3 million, $1 billion, more than $1 billion, 1,034,000. I'm sorry, 1,034,558,870 went to political parties and candidates. So actually, the fire sector gave 51.1% to political parties and candidates, but this other sector gave 55.1% to political parties and candidates. So it was more oriented towards political parties and candidates than the fire sector was, which I find a bit of a surprise. Once again, the Democrats had an advantage, a funding advantage. When I was a kid, it was never the case when I was a young man, when I was alive in the 1970s. It seemed to never be the case that the Dems outraised, the Republicans. Seemed like the Republicans were always outraising the Democrats. Because in those days, since Democrats were so close to unions, corporations would heavily give to the Republicans. But now that it's the Dems who've become extremely corporate. So here, 573.2 million went to Dems from this other category. 455.9 million went to the Republicans. So Dems had a considerable advantage in this other category, which is the second largest category here. The outside spending that did not go to parties or that went to neither party was $256.4 million. So I found that rather surprising, that there was this other category that was so important. I don't know, how everybody else feels about that, but I found that to be very surprising and very significant. The third biggest category, is ideology single issue groups. Didn't expect them to be so prominent either, but they were. They gave roughly $1.1 billion, was spent. I should say $1.1 billion. 53.3% of that went to the parties and candidates. Okay, to Dems, 53 point. Oh no, I'm sorry. I think I got that right. 53.3% of the 438 million went to Democrats. 46.5% went to Republicans. So Democrats had an advantage there too. And 642,587,406 went to outside spending. So in the ideology single issue category, the outside spending was the majority of spending. Okay, it was very important. Then there's the miscellaneous business category. So you might be wondering what's in there. So let's go look. Or I will go look anyway. Don't think I'll share it, but I'll just share with you the definitions. The broad miscellaneous business grouping includes manufacturing, textile, steel, chemicals, consumer retail goods, restaurants, beer wholesalers, and funeral services. Also part of this sector are the gambling, tourism, and food and beverage industries. That's very significant because I suppose that's where you'd find contributions from people like Sheldon Adelson. Many of the countries in this sector are well known to the average American and produce or sell basic goods and services vital to the national economy. For example, Walmart stores. Then they have a link you can read much more about the Walmart stores. I'm not going to go deeply into this one right now, but I may indeed come back to it. So that's the fourth largest category, the miscellaneous business category. That was a little more even between the two parties. 50.3% went to the Democrats, 50.1% went to the Republicans. I'm sorry. 50.3% went to Democrats, 49.3% went to the Republicans. But $188.9 million went to outside spending, not to party candidates, at all. Here's a surprise I found. And this is after going over the top industries that went to many of the candidates we covered. The fifth most important industry was communications and electronics. They spent in the 2022 cycle $341,331,000. That ain't hay. $186,000 of it went to parties and candidates. I should say 187 million of it went to parties and candidates. The rest, which was roughly 150 million, went to outside spending. look how much of this went to Democrats. That's fascinating. 143,682,000 went to Democrats. Actually, 683,000 if I round off. And Republicans from the communications electronics industry got only 43 million compared to 144 million for the Democrats, compared to 154 in outside spending for neither party. So Democratic money dominated that particular category, which is very interesting. That communications electronics was more important to the Democrats than was labor, as we'll see in just a minute. The sixth most important industry was health. Let's try to get a definition of what's included in health. Let's look at that. No, I did that the wrong way. I should have opened up a separate page for that. So I do that right now. So pharmaceutical companies, physicians, and health professionals are the largest source of federal campaign contributions in this sector. During the 2018 election cycle, members of this industry gave $225 million to federal candidates. Outside money groups and parties, healthcare professionals make the most contributions to individual candidates, PACs, and outside spending groups. In general, donors from this sector tend to support Democrats rather than Republicans. So far in 2018, Democratic federal candidates and incumbents have received $63 million from this industry, while Republicans have received $49 million from this industry. So that was in 2018. This is a particularly important industry, so I'm going to take a look at this from contributors. So one doctor, Carla T. Jurvetson, who's an MD, contributed $14,104,472. $2.4 million of that went to Democrats. 11.7 million of it went to Liberal Party candidates. Isn't that interesting? She must be almost the sole supporter of the Liberal Party. The Greater New York Hospital Association also contributed a tremendous amount to the Liberal Party, $7.7 million. Greater New York Hospital Association Management gave $4 million to the Liberals. We don't get down to a contributor who gave to the Republican Party until we get to First Pharma International. Well, they gave $2.4 million actually to the Conservative Party, not to the Republican Party, because in New York State there's a Conservative Party too. A company called Sharkey Hearing Technologies gave more than $2 million, about 400,000 to Democrats, 1.4 million to Republicans, and 550,000, okay, to the Conservative Party. So they sort of spread things out, but gave the majority of their money to the Republican Party. United Health Group, they spent $2.1 million in that campaign. A little over $1,054,000 to Democrats, 850,000 to Republicans. Okay. Again, Democrats had an advantage there. American Hospital Association, $2.1 million, 1.2 for Democrats, 898,000 for Republicans. When we go to the big contributors, the biggest contributors, by the way, American Society of Anesthesiologists, $1.9 million. They spent a little more for Democrats, 921,000, 880,000. And there's Pfizer. Pfizer gave $1 billion to Democrats and 628,000 to Republicans. Democrats had a funding advantage there too. Well, I can go on and on with this. There's kind of a general pattern here, though, that Democrats have a funding advantage, okay, or wow. This corporation called the Masimo Corporation, it gave $1.528 million, $1.509 million went to Democrats. Very little went to anybody else. Centene Corporation. Okay, the corporation that bought the Fidelis Company. Which was so important in the death, okay, of Danny Denoyer. Guess who they contributed the majority of their money to? Yep, it was the Dems. They gave $1.5 million. 996,000 of it was to Dems. 411,000 of it was to Republicans. Okay, there's a breakout here also. And let's see if anybody else is really, I mean, these are significant amounts of money. I mean, this is money for one cycle we're talking about. 2022 elections. The American Medical Association, which you expect, might be a very, very heavy contributor. Well, they are among the top contributors, but 1.3 million. They're dwarfed by some of these other contributors. Who do they give to? The AMA, the conservative AMA, 798,000 to Democrats, 517,000 to Republicans. Contributions trends. You can see over time in this graphic. Am I showing this graphic, Dee?
Yes, it's up.
Okay, that graphic is up.
Yes, the graphic is up.
No, that wasn't the graphic I was talking about. So the graphic I was talking about is not up. I'm gonna stop the screen, and I'm gonna share the other screen that I was looking at, because that graphic, the other graphic, is real interesting. Where is it? It's in the other group, I think. Nope. That's not the group I wanted. Maybe it's this one. Nope. That's not it either. I got too many things I'm juggling here, folks. Okay, I think I'm sharing the right tab now. Let's see. No. Jeez. So, let me try sharing the screen again. There it is. Reason why I was interested in this is because it shows changes over time from 1990 to 2022. These are health contribution trends. Okay, the gray bars here are soft money outside contributions. So you can see for most of the years here, these contributions are relatively small compared to what happened, a little later. Okay. Contributions are mostly from individuals and from PACs. Then the Supreme Court decision comes in 2010. The Citizens United decision. And we see that in 2010 itself, in that cycle, individual contributions and PAC contributions are dominant. And there's not much in the way of outside spending, because it took people a little time to adjust to the decision of the Supreme Court. Suddenly, in 2012, the outside spending money jumps up. There was virtually none in 2010. And suddenly it jumps up to 62.1 million spending in 2012. It's just about as big as the PAC money category. In other words, these are the super PACs, the carry committees, the other groups doing outside spending, not to political parties or to individuals. Some reason in 2014 that outside spending shrinks down considerably. Have no idea why, because nothing happened in 2014 except to strengthen the possibility of doing that kind of spending. But there it is in 2016, it's back again strong to a new high of 81.3 million. PAC contributions are basically staying the same at about 64 million or something like that, 63 million in 2018. The outside money went up to 87 million from 81 million. Then the outside spending jumps up strongly in the election of 2020. This is on healthcare. We're talking about healthcare spending. Outside spending rockets up to $192.9 million. PAC spending stays, well, it declined even. It wasn't 63.5 million in the 2018 cycle, but in the 2020 cycle, it goes up to 58. I mean, it declines to 58.2 million. Okay, individual contributions go way up, way up. That's due to improvements in the ground games. 418.9 million in individual contributions. But okay, remember, individual contributions are not all small contributions. There's the under 200 group and the over 200 group, and they're not distinguished in this graphic. Outside spending shrinks to 72 million in the 2022 cycle, from 193 to 72 million. So you can expect in 2024, we're going to see that rocket up. PAC spending goes down a little bit. Yeah, 58 million to 56 million. And the individual spending, these went down in 2022 because it's a congressional election year rather than a presidential and congressional election year. So you see that. But I thought these trends in healthcare spending, were very, very interesting. 2009 and 2010. No, I should say the 2010 cycle, which covers 2009 and 2010. That was the cycle where the big fights over healthcare reform. That's when the Affordable Care Act was passed. And that's when Medicare for All was being taken off the table by the Obama administration. There was almost no outside spending there. Then you immediately go to the 2012 cycle and you see this tremendous amount of outside spending coming in. It went up as high as 87 million in 2018. But in 2020, it rocketed up to 193 million. Now, we weren't having great fights in 2020 about healthcare reform. Yes, the Medicare for All bills were introduced. And Bernie was running a Medicare for All campaign. Maybe that's what counts for the fact that the outside spending was so high then. In other words, the outside spending probably would have been enormously high in 2010 if the citizens, by united decision, had come in 2009 and people had a chance, to adjust to it. Then that cycle probably would have had a lot of outside spending. Well, certainly the 2008 cycle would have had a lot of outside spending if it was legal to do the independent expenditures with no limits on them. Here are figures on lobbying by top health industries. Pharmaceuticals and health products in the 2022 cycle spent $375.3 million. Hospitals and nursing homes spent $125.3 million. Health services and HMOs, $125 million. Health professionals, $97 million. Miscellaneous health, $8,514,000 was spent. Lobbying totals are given here. okay, in a graphic. Interestingly, the lobbying totals were very high in 2008. They hit a peak of this historical series of 551.2 million during the election of 2008. In 2009, they went down a bit to 523.7 million. Then they went down in 2011 again. They leveled off in 2012, 13, and 14. The Affordable Care Act had been passed. Started going up again in 2015, in 2015 and 2016, when Bernie was running, okay, on Medicare for All. They kept going up during Trump's period, 2017, 2018, 2019. Remember, 2018 was the big Medicare for All election, when Democrats were running successfully, okay, on Medicare for All. There's $573.6 million spent in lobbying for health care, okay, at that point. Is that correct? 18,570. I'm sorry, 573.6 million. In 2019, that went up to 611.7 million. In 2020, even though none of the presidential candidates was running on Medicare for All, the healthcare spending, the lobbying spending, went up to $639.5 million. 2021 to $703.5 million. In 2022, the healthcare lobbying went up to $731 million, by far a new high. In fact, the new high started actually with 2017. That was higher than the 551 million spent in 2009. So there's been a trend upward in the lobbying over healthcare from 2017 on, and it hit its highest point in the 2022 cycle. So we can expect to see more of that. The party split is shown for 1990 to 2022. It's very interesting. Spending was fairly even between, or contributions were fairly even between Republicans and Democrats. In some of the early years here, in 2096, healthcare contributions to Republicans were more than Democrats. In 2098, more than Democrats. In 2000, 2002, through all these years, the Republicans had a funding advantage. Things flip in 2008. They flipped to Democrats. And in 2008 and 2010, Democrats were collecting more money from the healthcare lobbyists. In 2012, things shift over to the Republicans again, probably because of the unpopularity of the Affordable Care Act. Again, in 2014, the Republican lobbying, there's more lobbying money spent by Republicans than Democrats, or for Republicans rather than for Democrats. In 2016, the advantage goes back to the Democrats again, probably because Bernie was running on Medicare for All platform. 2018, it's even more of an advantage of Democrats. In 2020, the advantage of Democrats is out of sight, even though Joe Biden is saying there will be no Medicare for all. If it crosses my desk, I'm going to veto it. And in 2022, there's another huge advantage for Democrats. In 2020, though, this is astonishing to me, almost $300 million was spent by the lobbyists on Democrats versus $176 million that was spent on the Republicans. So the Democrats had a huge advantage in that sector. That's the biggest advantage any party ever had. 2022, Democrats were ahead by 129.3 to 80.5 million. So, I could point to more interesting statistics there, but I think I'm going to go back to the interest group page again. I got stuck on healthcare because, of course, I think healthcare is so important. So that's why I spend so much time on it. So here's another surprise. Okay, I've been looking at individual candidates here and contributions to them for a long time. I looked at a lot of candidates already. We covered what was it? Something like, I don't know, 180 members of Congress between, the progressive Democrats, the establishment Democrats, the conservatives on the Republican side, and the establishment people, okay, on the Republican side. We must have covered 180 Congress people. When I would see the spending, I would always see that labor seemed to not be competitive at all in spending with any of these other groups. And it does have a disadvantage in the 2022 cycle. But what I found surprising was that labor in funding was actually more important than lawyers and lobbyists, and began to approach the health sector in terms of importance. Labor gave spent $249 million in the 2022 cycle. That's pretty big money. But only about 70 million of it went to parties and candidates. The rest of it was outside spending on labor issues. In terms of the spread of spending of the $199.6 million that was done in relation to parties and candidates, 72% of it went to Democrats and only 28% of it went to Republicans. So the Dems, of course, had a big advantage with labor, which is what you would expect. In the energy and natural resource area, I should cover lawyers and lobbyists first. They spent $221.5 million in the 2022 cycle. Most of it was spent on political parties and candidates. 199.6 million out of the 221.5 million. So roughly 21.5 million was spent for outside spending. Most of it was spent for the campaigns. Dems had a big lead here. Almost 72% of the 199 million went to Dems. 143 million of it went to Dems. To Republicans, there was 56 million. So the lawyers and lobbyists are pretty overwhelmingly Democrat. The energy natural resource category spent 190.8 million. Less than half of that, 90.3 million, went to political parties and candidates. The rest, 100 million, went to outside spending. 31.7% of the 91 million went to Democrats, 68.1% went to Republicans. And 100 million was spent outside spending. So I could go down into more of these categories, but oh yes, I do want to cover the defense category. Now you would expect that defense industries, since they're so powerful politically in this country, and is so important in terms of us getting into wars all over the world and into military interventions of various kinds, would be spending a huge amount of money. Their spending is dwarfed by all the other examples we've gone through here. Now, maybe Open Secrets isn't measuring the military industrial complex right, because maybe part of the fire sector is actually devoted to the military industrial complex. Okay. But assuming that they're categorizing things in the right way, Open Secrets only records $33 million in 2022 to the defense industry. 26.7 of it is to the political parties. There's only 7 million in independent spending. Not a big deal compared to these other categories we've gone through. 43.8% of the spending goes to the Democrats, and 56.0% of the spending goes to the Republicans. So that's how defense broke down. A good majority of the spending is for the Republicans, lobbying them as opposed to lobbying the Democrats. I think that's interesting. I think I should look at how the defense industry is defined here. Seems to me that would be important. Although the defense sector contributes far less money to politicians than many other sectors, it is one of the most powerful in politics. Sector includes defense, aerospace, defense electronics, and other miscellaneous defense companies. Individuals and political action committees associated with the defense sector contributed 50 million to political candidates and committees during the 2020 campaign, with far more going to Republicans and Democrats, 21.7 million versus 25.4 million. Seems to me that's a pretty even distribution, more even than I would expect. And it goes through the major military industrial complex things here in the top contributors area. I find this very interesting, so I'll take a few minutes to treat it. I think after that, we'll stop for now. And then on Friday, we'll come back to explore some of the other categories that we missed here today. But let's just go over the top contributors. Okay. Lockheed Martin. Jesus, Lockheed Martin. $3,111,388. Not near as much as some of the healthcare contributors did, right? We went over the top contributors in the healthcare area. One friggin' doctor spent $14 million. Sorry to lapse into street language for a moment. Okay, Democrats, 1.604925 million. Republicans, 1.430 million. So Democrats actually got more from Lockheed Martin than Republicans. Not by that much, I don't think. A few 100,000 more. Now here's the Colsa Corporation. I don't even know who they are or what they make. But they gave 295,747 to Republicans and 2.1 million to conservative parties and candidates. Altogether, they gave 2.4 million. Northrop Grumman gave 2.2 million, 1.1 million to Democrats, and 1.0 million to Republicans. Pretty evenly divided, spread out over the two major parties. Then there's Raytheon, 1.1 million for Democrats, 978,000 for Republicans, 2.2 million, okay, in total. Raytheon and Northrop Grumman split things almost the same way. A little more for the Democrats than for the Republicans. Then there's this the Colazzo Enterprises. I've never even heard of them. They spent 2.1 million, and they gave 112,000 to Republicans and 2 million to the Conservative Party. Strange, it seems to me. Okay, General Dynamics, 1 million to Democrats, a little more than a million to Republicans. The Republicans had a very small advantage there. 2 million in total. Okay, General Atomics. Uh, 455,000 for Democrats, 1.3 for Republicans, 101,000 for conservatives, 1.9 million altogether. So a lot of these defense industries spent over a million in 2022, or I should say a lot of these companies spent over a million in 2007. A number of them spent over 2 million. There was only one in the 3 million range, as I recall. Yeah, that was Lockheed Martin. Such other companies as L3Harris Technologies and Dooney Industries, also Leidos. There's BAE. Most of the companies divided their giving. But here's a company called Intelligenesis. They sound like they might be an AI company or something like that. They gave 65,000 to Democrats and over $1 million to the Liberal Party. The Liberal Party pretty much operates only in New York State. So that's kind of interesting and kind of funny. Remarkable in the original sense of that word. Then they go over a number of other defense industry companies. Surprising to me is there were contributions from Booz Allen and Hamilton. They make big money doing consulting work for the Defense Department. Really big money. But they only gave $337,759. in 2022. 195 of it to Democrats, 135 to Republicans. So I found that strange. They do have summary at the bottom here. Contributions to Democrats. Oh, I guess if I put my cursor over there, I don't get any numbers, so there isn't a summary in that way. They do have defense contribution trends here, which you should be looking at right now. There was a lot of independent expenditure spending in the period from 1996 to 2002. Then it virtually disappeared until 2016, when it was a bit substantial again. Then in 2020, the outside spending wasn't really substantial following the CU decision by the Supreme Court until 2022. Then it went up to $6.4 million. In 2020, it was $2.3 million. So why would the outside spending have increased? I suppose because of the Ukraine war. That probably accounts for it. These defense companies are starting to give more money. So I continue to believe, after going through the details here, that these estimates for military industrial complex spending are underestimated. They don't go through companies that have great interests within the defense industry and that basically lobby for it. So I think I'm going to leave things there for tonight. And I think we'll come back to this aggregation or this aggregate spending by industry again on Friday, because it looks like there are a lot more facts to go through here in order to get a big picture of what the hell is going on. I hope you found this interesting. I certainly found it interesting myself. I've outlined a number of surprises that I went through.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they were surprises for any of you. Did you find this interesting, Dee?
Yes, I did. You know, it's always about the money and where the money's coming from.
And it did clarify for us where the money is coming from and also how much it is.
And that's what we're dealing with and why they are loyal to these people that are giving them money.
What we'll find out on Friday, I think, we'll find out a lot more about the outside spending. Because in many of these sectors, there was considerable outside spending. Some spent actually primarily on the parties and candidates, but others spent a lot more on outside spending. And that's going to be interesting to look at in more detail when we come back to dump the corruption on Friday.
Okay. And tomorrow, what are you going to be talking about tomorrow?
Tomorrow, I'll be talking about BRICS, what happened at BRICS, and also how I think it relates to what is going on in Ukraine. Because I think the two are interrelated. I think one thing that is spurring interest in BRICS is that people in the world see that the Russians have been standing up to the United States and are winning the war, in Ukraine, which says to people that the weapons of the United States, which lots of people thought might be superior to the weapons of the Russians, and by inference, that the military might of the United States was probably thought to be so much greater than the military might of the BRICS combination, even though BRICS is primarily an economic thing. When you look at all these things and what you want to do, in the economics, and banking area, and in the trading area, you have to have your mind on what is the relative military power of the blocs, that I'm a part of. Until recently, I think it was assumed that compared to the United States, that the China-Russia combination was not so formidable. But with Russia showing its capability to produce military equipment on just a gigantic basis for this war, and it's also military capability to use its weapons, to dominate a large army, in Ukraine that was armed with Western weapons and well armed, with Western weapons, and increasingly well armed, as the war goes on. You have to figure this is going to spill over to the economic area, because when other nations want to defy the United States, in the economic area, they of course have to look over their shoulder in terms of what the power of the United States is, in the military area. And one impact, of the Ukraine war is that power is no longer the way it was in the 1990s. It's not an overwhelming power any longer of the weapons that the combination of China and Russia have to offer, and even some other third powers, such as Iran. The weapons that we have just don't appear to be so superior anymore. The Russians have been liquidating an enormous amount of Western equipment that was given, to Ukraine in this war. Now, yes, it's older equipment. In many instances, it's 1990s equipment, and it's not actually the latest we have. But some of the weaponry that was given to Ukraine, like the javelins, what is it? The M777 howitzers. Also, the Western tanks. They just didn't prove to be the wonder weapons that they were held out to be. The Russians easily countered them from a military point of view and came out on top. So everybody around the world is noticing this, and seeing it. And that has to make doing some kinds of deals and some kinds of alliances with the BRICS nations more and more attractive, because the ability of the U.S. to militarily threaten other nations, it seems to me, is going to be perceived in a different way as a result of that war. So I think we might be seeing some of the results tomorrow uh, when more of the results of the BRICS talks, are known. But
Right, because right now everybody's greeting each other and all that.
well, they're more than that. They were making speeches and
That's
defining.
what I said, greeting each other in speeches and all that.
Right, but
Yeah.
all that involves defining priorities or proposing priorities.
Yes.
And there are agreements that are going to come out, of this. And we fully expect that there are going to be a number of other nations that are going to join, uh, most probably tomorrow.
Mhm.
We'll learn that this country was accepted, that country was accepted, the other country was accepted. I mean, it could be as many as 10 countries are going to be accepted over today and tomorrow, which we're going to hear about, and that this group could expand from 5 members to 15 members all of a sudden.
Yes, you see it expanding. And yesterday on TikTok, I saw just a clip of the South African president, giving an honor to Xi Jinping, the highest honor, of there is, with all he's done, and with this multipolar world and putting this whole group together. And I saw on the plane too. I saw him coming off the plane and all of that. That it's just so nice how people are greeting each other. And Cuba's on their way over there, and it's nice. It's nice to see some people like Cuba, because for all that Cuba's been through, and different countries for all they've been through, it's just nice to have this group and everybody being respectful and talking respectfully to each other, and
Yeah,
acknowledging
and
everybody with
it
respect.
would be great if Cuba could join the BRICS
Hmm.
and be part, of the trading bloc, because I think they would find themselves extremely well accepted there, and they would be in a much better position to block the sanctions of the United States and to survive in spite of those particular sanctions.
Right. And that's what BRICS really, you see, BRICS is just so powerful with dealing with that issue, is the issue of the sanctions and helping the countries, improve their condition in spite of the sanctions, getting around this. And it's about time, that there is a organization that's doing something about what the US has been doing to other countries with this attitude.
Yes. So we do have some comments, just a few, not a lot, but we do have some comments. And there are comments, by Andy Candy, who is coming to us, is April Mono. She says, "Hi all, sorry so late. Finally got the 2-year-old twins to to sleep. I guess it's go to sleep. Uh, that Wagner leader is kaput. Is kaput. Oh, you mean something
Yeah.
happened to Prigozhin?
Yeah, they're saying he's dead. I have to verify it.
Oh,
They
Prigozhin.
said the plane went down over Moscow. That's what I was seeing, but I want to verify it. Let me go
Oh,
verify
his
it.
plane might have gone down over Moscow. I see. Goldman Sachs is predicting another economic shutdown. Uh,
I saw that too.
there doesn't have to be a shutdown if Kevin McCarthy is willing to go after Democratic votes. Because there are only, I mean, even if all of the Freedom Caucus comes together and there are no defections or whatever, he only has to get 40 to 50 votes, out of the Democrats. And the Democrats don't want a shutdown. Now, of course, his bargaining power in terms of concessions from the Democrats would then be severely restricted, and he would have to accept that. But I think it's better than a shutdown where the Republicans would be getting the blame for the shutdown. Okay, now this is different from the debt ceiling crisis we had before. The reason why it's different is that this is a budgetary crisis. What they have to do is to vote on appropriations. If no appropriations are forthcoming, then no spending can happen. In other words, even if Biden were to mint $100 trillion coin, the proceeds could be used to repay debt from that coin. But no proceeds could be used to do any new fiscal spending because there was no appropriation from Congress. So this is a different situation than the earlier crisis. And in some ways it's a more serious one, but it can easily be settled if Kevin McCarthy will cross the aisle. Now, he crossed the aisle on the debt ceiling crisis, so maybe he'll cross the aisle on this one also. But his problem is that they may try to pull a vacate the chair on him if he goes outside the party again for this. So we have to see what happens.
Yes, I just verified it because I saw it earlier on TikTok. I saw the mentioning about Prigozhin, being dead and everything. I said, well, I have to verify that. And it is verified, and Russia verified it. It has the Russian Aviation Authority has confirmed that Russian mercenary chief Yevgeny Prigozhin and Wagner chief commander Dmitry Utkin were on board the crashed Embracer plane. All 10 people on board the plane died, according to Russia's Ministry for Emergency Situation, Reuters reports.
Were they flying back from Africa?
They were it just says they were flying to Russia.
They were flying to Russia, yeah. They might have been, in Belarus also.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Andy Kennedy says, maybe we'll finally get our $600 Biden kept. Well, he didn't really keep the $600. He just didn't give it to us. Could have given it to us. He could have gotten Congress to appropriate it. But he didn't want to do that. So that was what it was. But he didn't keep it. And Andy Candy says Biden will start a nuclear war before he'll let BRICS be successful. I don't know, Andy. I'm not sure I really agree with that. Okay, I think in the end, that Biden is going to back away from a nuclear war. I just don't think that Biden is the nuclear war type.
No.
I mean, I would be much more afraid, if Hillary were in the presidency right now.
Okay, except that I just want to say, because I see he has a comment there about the plane, and it has here, according to The Guardian, that he was flying from Moscow. The plane was en route from Moscow to St. Petersburg and was carrying 7 passengers and 3 crew members.
I see. So his base was in St. Petersburg. That's probably why he was flying back there. Had a lot of businesses there. Okay, a lot of economic reasons to fly back there.
Mm-hmm.
And he says he was kind of foolish to fly over Russia, wasn't he? I don't think Russia would. I don't know. I mean, I don't know whether this is an assassination, because it would be easier to do an assassination some other way and not to kill the other 9 people. And Prigozhin's partner, Dmitry Utkin, I think his name is, uh, he was not anywhere near as crazy. Uh, and he was effective as a military leader. So, what would be Russia's motive to want to kill him too? And some of the other people flying on the plane as well.
That's, yeah, Evgeny Alexander Totman, Valery Shekalov, and then, like we said, Dmitry Utkin, Nikolay Matusev, and Protogin.
Yeah, yeah, Prigozhin, yeah. And
they're saying Biden's response when Biden was notified. Biden's like he wasn't surprised. You know,
April says, I'll rewatch again and share. I think the shutdown, you mean the government shutdown, is because of COVID? I don't think
they're
there's.
talking about that.
I'm sorry?
I heard something about them wanting people in September to start wearing masks again, and something about a different variant with COVID. But you hear things, and you just wait and see, because you don't know if some stuff you're hearing is just speculation or
We
if it is
were.
a big deal.
I was over at Kaiser today taking a test. Okay, and I went to the lab, and they were wearing masks in the lab, but they always wear masks, okay, in the lab.
Right. Especially if you're in a lab, yeah.
Okay, but outside of the lab, in the reception areas, okay, and all the other areas that you see when you go into Kaiser, no one was wearing any masks. No one was masked. The receptionists were not wearing masks. Okay, so there are no orders coming out of there. Kaiser is generally very conservative and goes by what the government says.
Yeah, I'm hearing this stuff is talking about September, and there is that sense of I heard something about wanting to have like shutdowns and stuff, and some people are speculating that it could be about with election coming up again, and are they going to try to play a fast thing again? You don't know. You don't know. You hear things, but you just don't know until
There's probably a
time
lot
goes
of
on.
loose speculation that's going on. Uh, they've gotten so much criticism over the shutdowns, and so much has been found out about the shutdowns that they were not entirely necessary, and that the economic effects were bad. Okay, I don't see Biden pushing for showdowns anymore.
He's going to push for, well, not he's going to, but they're talking about wanting things to go their way in 2024 with primaries and stuff. So what kind of things are they going to do? Now, here Andy Candy says that she knows 15 people that have COVID right now. It's spreading like wildfire.
Well, we live here, okay, in a senior development, okay, as you know. Uh, we don't seem to have COVID here, as far as I know. Uh, Now, some people had it. We had it about 3 months ago, of course, okay, as you know. It was a very mild case. I suppose it was mild because Well, first of all, the variant was mild. The Omicron variant, okay, was mild. Okay, and we had also taken our shots, okay, and our boosters. Okay, at that point, we're very concerned about those boosters now, though,
Mhm.
because the research is showing that there's a substantial chance of, well, it's not substantial in that sense, but much higher than it should be chance of, getting myocarditis effects, okay, from the RNA vaccines. Okay, this applies to Moderna. Okay, it applies to Pfizer. Okay, but it applies, to the RNA vaccines uh, uh, in general. From the standpoint of myocarditis, they appear to be much more dangerous than the traditional vaccines were.
And
The
this is
data
where, like,
is just
you
showing.
know, right. And I was going to say, like, you and Bonnie take good care of yourself and, think of ways of prevention.
Yeah, we
You
do
know,
think of ways, okay, of prevention. We can't be sure that they're working. We think they're working.
but you're doing other things to keep your body strong.
Yes, we are doing other things to keep our bodies strong. We're very careful about our diet,
Hmm.
and we take also supplements that are supposed to be effective, okay, in actually protecting us.
Hmm.
Okay, and I'm going to see about whether the doctors I have uh, will feel free to prescribe uh, some of the medications which were frowned upon by the government earlier, but which the government, okay, is loosening up on. I'm not going to name what those are.
Right. You don't want to get the channel in trouble.
Right. Okay, I don't want to get a strike. But I'm going to see, okay, if some of my doctors would be willing to prescribe that, okay, if I want it. But in terms of the ratio of risk, okay, to benefit, uh, okay, it may be better to use one of the treatment methods that apparently have been effective, okay, in other nations, as opposed to going with uh, vaccines, this type, okay, of vaccines. Now, there are other COVID vaccines out there that are not this type, okay, of vaccines. They're based on older technology, which has been around for a long time, and the side effects of which are well known,
Hmm.
and which don't have the myocarditis side effect. But being old, we kind of worry about that side effect. That it wouldn't be any fun. So Andy says it's good you don't agree with me over nuclear war. That's encouraging. Well, I didn't say I didn't entirely agree with you. Uh, what I really said is I'm more comfortable with Biden as president in a nuclear risk situation than with Hillary as president in a nuclear risk situation. Of course, I didn't throw Sanders into that particular equation. If Sanders had been elected president in 2020, there wouldn't be any risk of nuclear war right now at all. So there's that. Uh, And Andy says, well, it was the CIA then, laugh out loud. And Andy says, I know 15 people that have COVID right now, spreading like wildfire. Where do you live, Andy? We live in the Washington area, in Ashburn, Virginia. I don't have the impression it's spreading here like wildfire, because if it were, everybody at Kaiser would be masking, and they would require that everybody who comes in be masked. I know them.
Even in our buildings here.
Yeah, even in our buildings here. Okay. Andy says, it's the long COVID that worries me. We still don't have M4A. We don't. We don't. Andy says, oh, Joe, throw a dog a bone, will you? Laugh out loud. I'm in North Georgia. Oh, I see. Okay, so it's spreading like wildfire in North Georgia. That's interesting. And dangerous. Okay, so I guess that's going to do it for tonight. Okay, thank you for coming, Andy. I always enjoy talking to you. And Steve and Kay and Jeff Denton. Hiya, Jeff. It's always great to see you. So thanks for coming. And Dee, thank you for coming and for assisting.
Oh, you're welcome.
And for
Always
helping.
good to be here.
Well, thanks. It's always good to have you here.
Yes, we always have our nightly politics.
Yeah. Okay, so tomorrow I'm sure I'll see you at 8:00.
Yes, you will. Oh, here, Andy Candy says also in Florida.
Ah, I see. Spreading in Florida also. Wow.
Well, I know Florida's got different things are spreading down there too.
Yeah, I
Like
know.
leprosy and things. It's weird.
Yeah, I know. Florida seems to be really weird right now. Andy Candy says, my pleasure. Much love and respect to you, Bonnie and Dee. Well, thank you, Andy.
Yes, thank you, Andy Candy. Good night. Good night, Bonnie. Good night, everybody.
And good night, Dee. And good night, everybody.
I gotta read this to you.
Okay, wait a minute. Wait a minute. I have to end the broadcast.